K-pop is full of incredible talent and jaw-dropping performances, but sometimes, the controversies go way too far. Today, we're diving into the scandals, rumors, and shocking moments that have tormented the K-pop world, and you won't believe what happened next. The Burning Sun scandal stands as one of the darkest chapters in modern K-pop history, revealing a disturbing underworld beneath the glitzy veneer of celebrity nightlife. It began in January 2019 when reports emerged of a man being assaulted by staff at the Burning Sun nightclub in Gangnam while intervening to protect a woman from harassment. What seemed like a singular incident quickly unraveled into a sprawling investigation exposing sexual assault, drug distribution, illegal filming, and police collusion. The club was found to have distributed HYBE, a ADOR drug, particularly targeting VIP patrons, while staff secretly recorded guests in private areas, some of which were shared in chat rooms involving celebrities. At the center was Seungri, former BIGBANG member, accused of mediating prostitution for wealthy investors and misusing his corporate ventures to support the club's illicit operations. Investigations also revealed embezzlement and illegal overseas gambling, painting a portrait of systemic abuse of power. Compounding the public outrage were allegations that senior police officials had protected the club, allowing these crimes to persist unchecked. Legal consequences followed. Seungri was sentenced to 18 months in prison along with fines, while other executives faced varying prison terms for drug offenses and management of illegal activities. MD Cho, a promoter, received 4.5 years for drug smuggling and use. Another co-CEO, Lee Moon-ho, was sentenced for habitual drug use. Police officials implicated in corruption saw investigations, but some of the most serious accusations resulted in acquittals or were dropped due to lack of evidence. Burning Sun exposed not only the vulnerabilities of nightlife culture but also the darker intersections of fame, wealth, and corruption, forcing a national reckoning over ethics, accountability, and the treatment of women in elite social spaces. In early 2019, a scandal of shocking proportions erupted involving singer Jung and Choi Jong-hoon, formerly of FT Island, when it was revealed that they had participated in a secret KakaoTalk group chat where they shared illegal, non-consensual recordings of sexual encounters. These recordings, often referred to in South Korea by the term Molka, meaning secretly filmed sexual content, had been made without the consent of the women involved. The evidence came to light in part through a whistleblower. A technician from a phone repair shop accessed Jung's phone during repairs and discovered thousands of KakaoTalk messages dating from 2015 to 2016. These leaked chat logs were forwarded to SBS Foon and the Anti-Corruption and Civil Rights Commission, and crucially, the leaked data was verified via a hashcode mechanism, suggesting the files had not been tampered with, giving investigators strong grounds to treat them as credible evidence. Within these group chats, Jung admitted to filming himself having sex with women without their knowledge at the time and distributing those videos to the chat members. The content was deeply disturbing. In one infamous exchange, members joked about gang rape, with one participant, reported to be Choi, describing the sound of her skull cracking, while another called it literally the funniest night of his life. Choi Jong-hoon, for his part, acknowledged that he shared this illicit material. In statements later made public, he admitted to distributing the footage, though he denied bribing law enforcement despite prosecutors' claims. Legally, both men were held to account. In 2019, Jung was sentenced to 6 years in prison, while Choi received 5 years, along with orders to complete 80 hours of sexual assault therapy and a 5-year restriction on working with minors. The court condemned their behavior, stating that they treated women as simple instruments of sexual pleasure, carrying out gang rape and sharing their actions as if in a game, a chilling reflection on how deeply they dehumanized their victims. This scandal was not isolated. It is closely linked to the wider Burning Sun affair, a massive K-pop nightclub controversy involving other celebrities, drug use, and corruption at high levels. The public outcry was fierce. Beyond being a scandal about hidden camera crimes, it became a moment of national reckoning in South Korea over Molka culture and digital sexual crime more broadly. The convictions of Jung and Choi were not just personal defeats, they symbolized a broader demand for accountability in entertainment, policing, and how victims' rights are treated when technology is weaponized. The net vote manipulation scandal erupted when viewers noticed suspiciously regular numerical patterns in the finale votes of Produce X101, triggering formal complaints and a sweeping police investigation that soon exposed the same manipulation across multiple seasons of the Produce franchise and even Idol School. What began as statistical oddities quickly escalated into a full criminal case. Producers admitted that rankings and final lineups had been altered in advance of broadcasts, revealing that contestants' fates marketed as audience decided had in fact been predetermined behind the scenes. The scandal therefore read as both a technical fraud by manipulated vote counts and a cultural betrayal, paid votes, behind-the-scenes deal-making, and preset outcomes turned what had been sold as an emotional, democratic audition into a manufactured product. The combined legal, commercial and moral fallout reshaped how Korean broadcasters stage and how the public now views audience-decided idol shows. Prosecutors uncovered direct interference, pressure from agencies, and instances of bribery-like exchanges, turning the scandal into both a technical fraud and a cultural breach of trust. Investigators moved fast. In November 2019, prosecutors secured arrest warrants and detained key producing staff, and by December several producers and agency representatives were formally indicted for obstruction of business, fraud, and related charges. The chief producing director Jung ultimately admitted that rankings had been manipulated across multiple seasons. Prosecutors' filings and press briefings concluded that certain final lineups had been predetermined and that contestants' ranking swaps had been carried out before final broadcasts. Those admissions converted viewer suspicion into criminal casework. Courts responded with rare firmness. Leading producers received prison sentences and fines, while others faced suspended sentences or legal penalties. In May 2020, Seoul courts found the producers guilty. Jung received a custodial sentence of 2 years, with fines/forfeiture reported, and chief producer Kim Yong-beom was also sentenced. Assistant producers and several agency reps were fined or received suspended sentences. Appeals followed, but the convictions marked a rare moment of legal accountability in the entertainment industry and established criminal precedent for rigging public vote formats. Ultimately, angle pieces and the investigation record documented ancillary wrongdoing that deepened public revulsion. Prosecutors reported evidence of bribery-style transactions and the misuse of company resources, that is, including payments that prosecutors traced to entertainment industry spending tied to efforts to influence outcomes. The fallout hit artists and fans hardest. X1 disbanded almost immediately. IZ*1 endured a forced pause and intense scrutiny, and trainees who had invested years of training lost irreplaceable opportunities. Beyond individual careers, the scandal permanently damaged public faith in vote-based audition shows, forced broadcasters and agencies to overhaul transparency practices, and marked a turning point in how the K-pop industry's viewer-chosen narratives are perceived. Kris Wu Yifan, a once ubiquitous pop star who rose to fame as a member of EXO and then as a solo actor-musician in China, was first publicly accused in July 2021 after a young influencer's posts triggered a flood of allegations. Beijing police detained him on suspicion of rape on July 31, 2021 and formally arrested him in mid-August. The Chaoyang District People's Court tried the case behind closed doors to protect victims' privacy, and on November 25, 2022 the court found him guilty of 2 separate sets of crimes: raping 3 women who were intoxicated at his home in December 2020, and assembling a crowd to engage in sexual promiscuity in an incident dated July 1, 2018. The combined punishment was a fixed prison term of 13 years followed by deportation. In a near-simultaneous prosecution for tax wrongdoing, Chinese authorities imposed a 600 million yen, which is about $84 million fine for tax evasion, and the appeal against the conviction was heard in private and ultimately rejected, and the original sentence was upheld in late 2023. The case produced swift and sweeping real-world fallout. dozens of endorsement deals and corporate partnerships including high-profile global brands were terminated, his music and screen works were removed from major Chinese platforms, and his name was effectively erased from much of the domestic entertainment ecosystem, underlining how the legal verdict and state regulatory responses combined to dismantle a superstar's commercial standing. Sulli, formerly of F.X., was found dead on October 14, 2019, in what police treated as a likely suicide. In the days and years before her death, she was relentlessly attacked online, for live-streaming drinking with friends, for not wearing a bra, and even for expressing feminist ideas, all things that, in her public life, provoked misogynistic and deeply personal hate. She had also spoken publicly about her social anxiety and panic disorder. In fact, she hosted a TV show in which celebrities read and responded to hateful online comments. According to multiple reports, Sulli repeatedly asked her agency, SM Entertainment, to take stronger action against the vicious cyber trolls. Her death stimulated a massive public outcry. Thousands signed petitions calling for an internet real name system to hold online harassers accountable, and lawmakers began discussing anti-cyberbullying legislation sometimes referred to in the media as the Sulli Act. Her passing brought into sharp relief how dangerously exposed idols can be, especially women who defy conservative gender norms, facing not just public scrutiny but a cultural intolerance for mental health struggles. Hara, formerly of Kara, died by suicide on November 24, 2019. Her death came just over a month after Sulli's, which only magnified public grief and outrage. Gu's mental health had been precarious. Earlier in May 2019, she was hospitalized after a suspected suicide attempt, and publicly apologized to her fans, saying she had been in agony over a number of issues. One major component of her suffering was a very public, traumatic legal battle with her ex-boyfriend, Choi. He was convicted of assault and blackmail. He had threatened to release sex videos of them, using that as leverage over her career. The case drew widespread condemnation. The Korea Cyber Sexual Violence Response Center spoke out in support of her, calling his threats a form of sexual violence, not just a private dispute. Although Choi was sentenced, the court did not find enough evidence that she had not consented to being filmed, which sparked further outrage. Beyond the legal battle, Gu was battling relentless online harassment. Her Instagram, for instance, was flooded with hateful comments about her appearance, her past, and her personal struggles. After her death, tens of thousands signed a petition to the Blue House, the South Korean presidential office, calling for stricter laws on cyberbullying and more severe consequences for online abuse. Her suicide also reignited conversations in South Korea about revenge porn, the power dynamics in relationships, and how the law protects or fails to protect women's sexual privacy. Together, Sulli and Hara's deaths exposed a brutal reality. K-pop idols, and especially young women, often navigate a poisonous combination of public pressure, misogyny, invasive media attention, and unchecked online hatred, all while dealing with mental health issues. Their deaths catalyzed a national conversation about reform, on cyber harassment laws, on mental health support for celebrities, and on cultural attitudes toward shame, gender, and vulnerability. Soo-man's history is deeply entangled with serious financial and contractual controversies, not just the slave contracts narrative, but also long-running allegations of tax avoidance, embezzlement, and self-enrichment through corporate structures he controlled. Here is a more detailed synthesis of what is verified, contested, and claimed from reliable sources, phrased with nuance and care. Soo-man has long been accused of running exploitative, so-called slave contracts. In particular, former SM artists such as the 3X TVXQ members, now JYJ, challenged the length and fairness of their contracts. Their dispute helped trigger a Korea Fair Trade Commission (KFTC) investigation, and in 2010 the KFTC imposed new regulations that limited exclusive entertainment contracts to 7 years, reducing the kind of long-term, restrictive deals that had previously been common. Beyond that, more recent financial accusations revolve around Lee's control of consulting companies and offshore entities. According to SM's co-CEO Lee Sung-soo, Soo-man set up CT Planning Ltd in Hong Kong, allegedly an offshore version of his domestic consulting firm, Like Planning. Lee Sung-soo claims that CT Planning takes 6% of SM's revenue before profits are distributed, which he suggests was done to reduce how much was taxed in Korea. SM was ordered to pay 20.2 billion won by the Korean National Tax Service after an investigation found unusual activity in financial transactions between SM and Lee Soo-man's entities. The overseas company named CT Planning strongly denied the allegations, saying it paid all taxes in accordance with local laws and threatening legal action against those spreading accusations. Moreover, Dispatch, a major Korean investigative outlet, published a report claiming that over 23 years, Lee Soo-man amassed the equivalent of $570 million through what they describe as a mix of embezzlement, manipulative contracts, and unfair profit extraction. According to this version, Lee allegedly siphoned funds from SM to acquire shares before the IPO, thereby inflating his personal stake, and only reimbursed the company after the investigation started. In his earlier career, Lee was also convicted. In 2002 to 2003 he was prosecuted for embezzling company funds about 1.15 billion KRW to buy shares. He fled, was placed on Interpol's wanted list, and later returned to face trial. According to legal records, the court found he had used fake capital to boost SM's equity for its Kosdaq listing. Another layer to this is the so-called producer license agreement, via which Lee continued to benefit long-term. He negotiated that he would continue to receive 6% of album revenues until 2092, even after his production contract ended, essentially ensuring a perpetual revenue stream from SM's back catalog. This kind of deal has drawn strong criticism, especially from activist investors like Align Partners, who say it entrenched Lee's personal wealth at the expense of the company and other shareholders. Finally, in recent years, a fierce boardroom battle has erupted. Lee sold much of his SM shares to HYBE, prompting a takeover war with the existing SM management, including his own nephew, the co-CEO. Some reports frame this not just as a power struggle but as a reckoning, a long-simmering conflict where Lee's financial maneuvers from past and present are finally being challenged by both investors and corporate insiders. These layers of controversy, from exploitative idol contracts, slave contracts to deeply intertwined financial self-dealing, have not only tainted Lee Soo-man's legacy but have also played a key role in raising broader questions about governance in K-pop entertainment companies. The scandals have fueled regulatory scrutiny, investor activism, and a re-evaluation of how power, profits, and contracts are managed in the industry. In 2017, T.O.P, real name Choi Sung-hyun, member of the iconic K-pop group BIGBANG, was indicted by prosecutors after a hair follicle test returned positive for marijuana, confirming allegations that he had used it on 4 separate occasions in October of the previous year at his home in Yongsan-gu, Seoul. According to reports, he had smoked both conventional and liquid marijuana via an electronic cigarette vaporizer. He admitted guilt in court, expressing deep remorse and citing long-standing struggles with depression and anxiety as contributing to what he called an irreversible mistake. The Seoul Central District Court sentenced him to 10 months in prison, but importantly, it was a suspended sentence, 2 years of probation and a fine about 20 million won, per some sources. The court's decision took into account that this was T.O.P's first offense and that he had fully accepted responsibility. Meanwhile, his status in the police, because he was serving his mandatory military service as a conscripted policeman, was reviewed. Authorities deemed it inappropriate for him to continue in that role, and he was removed from police duty. Symbolically, the scandal was seismic in the K-pop world. T.O.P was not a peripheral figure but one of the biggest names in the genre, and his conviction exposed the harsh drug stigma in South Korea, where even a single offense can have serious professional and social consequences. His apology and remorse were widely publicized, and the episode permanently cracked the carefully curated image of idol perfection, a reminder that fame does not place artists above law, and that mental health and substance use are real vulnerabilities even for top-tier stars. The conflict between ADOR and its parent HYBE centered on the management of NewJeans, has swelled into a full-scale legal and reputational showdown. In 2024, HYBE initiated an audit into ADOR executives, accusing the label's CEO Min Hee-jin of scheming to seize control, an allegation she forcefully denied, claiming HYBE was undermining ADOR's artistic autonomy. Tensions escalated when Min was removed as ADOR's CEO in August, a move that NewJeans publicly decried. In November, the group announced they were terminating their contracts, decrying mistreatment, deliberate miscommunications, and a failure of ADOR and by extension HYBE to protect them. ADOR responded by suing to confirm the validity of the exclusive contracts, warning that letting NewJeans exit unilaterally could disrupt Kpop's investment model. Then, in early 2025, a Seoul court granted ADOR a preliminary injunction. NewJeans is prohibited from independently signing advertising deals without ADOR's consent, and must engage in all entertainment activities under the NewJeans name, not their rebrand NJZ. The group, meanwhile, accused HYBE of defamation and reverse viral marketing, arranged to devalue them, and argued they had already paid back more than ADOR and HYBE had invested. The situation climaxed with the group announcing a temporary hiatus during their complex Con Hong Kong set, citing the emotional strain of the court battle. Most recently, in October 2025, a court ruled decisively in favor of ADOR. It upheld the exclusivity of NewJeans' contract, rejecting all of the group's claims. ADOR has since declared that it is readying a studio album, though NewJeans maintain that trust has completely collapsed and plan to appeal. One of the most harrowing episodes in TVXQ's history involves Jung-hoon, who in 2006 was reportedly given a bottle of orange juice by a woman he believed to be a staff member, but it turned out she was actually an anti-fan. After drinking it, he fell violently ill and was rushed to hospital. Investigations later suggested that the drink contained superglue, making it not just a prank but a potentially fatal act. Jung-hoon has admitted that the trauma haunted him for years, triggering an anxiety disorder, and even led him to avoid drinking orange juice until he forced himself to confront it by opening and drinking multiple cans in a kind of self-directed exposure therapy. On the JYJ side, some of whom formerly were in TVXQ, the stalking and invasion of privacy by Saeseeing fans went beyond obsession to something more sinister. There are documented reports that Saeseeings installed CCTV cameras in the private parking lot of Park Yu-chun, monitoring his comings and goings at home. According to T.O.P, some of these surveillance devices were not just amateur setups. Fans allegedly hijacked or mimicked real security cameras to keep constant tabs on him. Beyond that, JYJ members have publicly stated that Saeseeings tracked their cars with GPS, tapped their private phones, and even broke into their homes, taking photos of them sleeping or groping them. In response to these invasions, JYJ filed a lawsuit against media outlet Dispatch, claiming that many of the leaked recordings of the members were illegally recorded and edited. Taken together, these incidents illustrate how some fans' obsessive behavior crossed into criminal territory, poisoning, breaking into private property, planting surveillance devices, and violating basic boundaries. The psychological cost to the idols was very real, leaving lasting trauma and a deeply invasive sense of being watched even in what should have been their most private spaces. YG Entertainment's troubles have never been a single, tidy scandal but a running dossier of verified allegations and court findings that together sketch a pattern of misuse of influence, financial misconduct, and corrosive industry collusion. The crisis crescendo began publicly in 2019 with the Burning Sun revelations, a sprawling investigation that linked nightclub operators, entertainers, and some police officers to drug distribution, sexual crimes, prostitution mediation and alleged bribery, and which journalists and prosecutors described as exposing a quasi-criminal club to showbiz network that relied on celebrity clout and protection. In the same period, YG's founder Yang Hyun-suk stepped down amid mounting scrutiny, and later court records show he admitted to repeated gambling in Las Vegas and was fined by a Seoul court, a concrete legal blemish that undercut the company's denials of wrongdoing. Investigations that followed also tied agency behavior to attempts to suppress or influence probes into artists' misconduct, the high-profile drug probe involving former Icon member BI prompted allegations that YG insiders tried to shape witness testimony and obstruct inquiry, leading to charges against former executives and renewed public outcry about cover-ups. Together these episodes' convictions, indictments, leaked chat logs and prosecutorial filings fed a broader narrative widely reported in international outlets. Major agencies' power can be used to defend profits and image at the expense of victims, accountability, and fair enforcement, producing recurring cycles of courtroom battles, protests and calls for tougher regulation. The top scandals in K-pop, from the explosive Burning Sun case to corporate battles like ADOR versus HYBE, reveal that the industry's glittering surface often conceals a web of legal, ethical, and cultural crises. These controversies aren't mere gossip, they expose systemic vulnerabilities, the misuse of power, exploitation of idols, corruption in agencies, and the toxic pressures of fame amplified by social media. High-profile criminal cases, such as Kris Woo's conviction and the Molka chatroom scandal involving Jung and Choi Jong-hoon, illustrate how celebrity status can mask serious crimes, sparking nationwide and global debates on consent, accountability, and digital ethics. Meanwhile, the tragic losses of Sulli and Hara highlight the often overlooked mental health struggles idols face under relentless scrutiny, underscoring the need for compassionate reform. Corporate controversies, including YG Entertainment's agency misconduct and power struggles between ADOR and HYBE, remind us that the K-pop machine is not only about music, it's about financial control, creative dominance, and structural inequities. Even scandals like T.O.P's marijuana case reflect how societal norms and laws in South Korea uniquely shape idol culture, illustrating that no star is untouchable. Ultimately, these scandals collectively reshape our understanding of K-pop. They reveal a dual reality, the genre's unmatched global influence and artistry, alongside systemic flaws that demand attention. For fans, agencies, and policymakers alike, the takeaway is clear: K-pop's future must balance artistry with accountability, transparency, and genuine care for its artists. The lessons embedded in these 10 landmark scandals serve as both cautionary tales and catalysts for meaningful change. K-pop is dazzling, dynamic, and global, but its story is incomplete without confronting the darker chapters. Only by acknowledging them can the industry hope to evolve sustainably, ensuring that its stars shine without being consumed by the shadows behind the stage lights. It's time to subscribe if you want more video like these. Thanks for watching this video titled "These Controversies Have Gone Too Far."